Hello, I'm Pauline Jennings. Welcome to Musician Talk. My guest today is Craig Paquette, lifelong guitarist, singer, songwriter, as well as one of the founding and current members of the Minneapolis-based fan favorite rock band Thunderheads. They have been playing music together in one form or another for 40 years. Not many bands withstand this extended test of time, and I think it's due in large part to Craig's kindness and collaborative working style. Craig's brand new solo album, Back Together, is hot off the press, so I thought it would be a great time to talk with him. We'll hear a couple of his new tunes and the fascinating stories behind them. So let's dig in and talk with Craig Paquette. Welcome, Craig, to Musician Talk. I'm so happy to have you on.
It's really good to be here, and I appreciate you inviting me. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. I know Craig through his brother, who plays with my husband in a band called Jambalaya, and I met your brother, I don't know how many years ago, but I so love him, and I've heard so many great things about you. So this is really fun to have you on. So what we do, really, because we only have so much time, is we dive right in. And so if you could take me and our listeners on your musical journey and kind of take us from maybe when you first started playing.
Yeah. Well, music has been really important to me even before I think I can remember, because there's photos of me like when I'm 2 years old or 3 years old. There's a photo of me at 3, and I have my favorite present was a little red ukulele. And I'm sitting back and my head's up in the air and I'm singing Old MacDonald Has a Farm. So, I mean, it was from the start. And I remember in kindergarten, I'd stand up and sing and, so, I mean, there's certain things I don't think we can even help it. So,
right.
So that was, and then when I was little, I had piano lessons for a bit when I was about 8 years old, but I always liked guitar. And then, I was living in Minneapolis. I moved to Golden Valley when I was 10 years old. And shortly after that, I met some kids in the neighborhood, a guy by the name of John O'Neill, who played guitar, and his friend that lived across the street, Brian Bard, who played guitar. And so they, like in 6th grade, they were playing in a band.
Wow.
And then in 6th grade, Bob Dylan's brother, David Zimmerman, was our music teacher.
No.
So always joked that there was something magic in the water. Maybe it came from him, So Anyway, so then we had, speaking of my brother Bruce, we played in the basement. And so Bruce sang just like now I played guitar. My little brother, who at the time, was about 8, we were just little kids.
Right.
And my little brother, Glenn, he was probably about 8 at the time. He played guitar. And then we had a neighbor across the street that had the cheap little Sears drum set. And we called ourselves the group. So, and we said, well, the band is already taken, so we'll be the group. And so we played songs like Gloria, Proud Mary, Eleanor Rigby, some of those kind of things. So moving ahead, when I was in 10th grade, we put together a band. And I don't even know if we had a name, but we did play. It was the first time I ever played gigs. We played at some teen clubs, which was so much fun. And then years went on. When I was a senior in high school, there was a mutual friend that introduced me to a guy named Bobby Sinker, who was a drummer, and his parents let us practice in the basement.
Cool.
And so when I was in 12th grade, this was the time that I really fell in love with playing in a band. And so it was like best friends hanging out in the basement. His parents would let us play all hours. We could play 5-6 nights a week, as much as we wanted. And so we did that for, quite a few years. Well, what seemed like quite a few years, it was probably a regular thing for, at least 2+ years. It was like 1975 when I met Bobby Sinker. But then it was like 1984. I was still playing with the same bass player. His name's Brad McDonald. And we needed another guitar player. And I just happened to talk to Steve Blexrud, who was a friend of Bruce's. And we were at a Pat Metheny concert. And he said, yeah, I'm looking to join another band. I said, well, we could use another guitar player. So we kind of marked that as the start of Steve and I playing together, which 1984. We're still playing together. I mean, that means like next year it'll be 40 years.
Oh my goodness.
So then with that we weren't Thunderheads. We had different names. We were called The Opinion, which at the time this was, kind of that type of thing. We played at the Uptown Bar. We played at Williams. We played, we did play quite a few different places. And then that band just kind of developed, and we realized we could record an album with these guys. Had met someone. This is about 295 or so, and this guy had a studio in his basement, and that was before the time that everyone you could record, so this seemed like a big deal.
You had to go to a studio. I mean, you could do that at home.
And we had done some demos and things like that, but we recorded an album. But we said we're gonna be an original band now. This is gonna be cool. So we had an album out, and right away, I mean, we got to do an opener at First Avenue. Cool. And Fine Line, and so time goes on and we're playing, and then eventually the drummer Eric Jacobson, he ended up buying a resort, moved up to Bemidji, and so how bands go, people come and go, and so jumping ahead, then Eric Jacobson ends up coming back with the band, and so this was maybe 10 years later. So we decided to record another album. Things just kept on going, and we ended up doing some headline shows at First Avenue, and then the one thing about the band and us playing at the time is we all had kids, so in certain circumstances, if you're making a record and you're kind of young, you're thinking, oh yeah, let's get on the road, let's do all that. But since we all had families, I mean, we were just limited. We'd play maybe in St. Cloud, or, we'd go up to Grand Marais, or we would do those types of things, but we were stuck pretty much to home. But then eventually now, my kids grow and I can play more and I can kind of get out and meet more people and do things. And I'd say a thing that was kind of a thing that kind of changed, that was kind of a big deal, that kind of changed the direction or added to what I was already doing, is Jim Walsh. He would host these things called the Mad Ripple Hootenannies. And so what it would be songwriters that would get together, it would maybe be about 5 of them at the time. And, everyone would just take a turn playing original songs in front of an audience that was really into the music. I mean, that was the whole point. And so through that, I met all kinds of other musicians. And so that kind of started these collaborations, and, one thing leads to another. And so then using some of the people I'd met through those Mad Ripple Hootenannies, we started inviting guests. And so we'd have a night where we'd have an open, so there's people come in that were musician, usually mostly original type music, and they would play a set, and then Thunderheads would play a set, and then we'd collaborate at the end, and we just play some songs. And it was actually then through that I was invited by one of the guys that was Craig Paquette, who was playing with us at one of those things, and said, "Hey, I'm going up to Sparta Studios. Do you know Rich Mattson?" I'm going, kind of, but I know we've never really hung out. And he said, "Well, yeah, we're recording up there in a couple of weeks. Why don't you come up there?" So I had kind of talked about I had some original songs, and I thought, well, this would be the perfect chance. So when I went up there, it was like they were recording. It was a collaboration type of thing, and I just like, man, this is it. Because you go there, you're out, you're staying there. It's in Sparta, which is near it's kind of up on their Iron Range near Virginia.
Okay.
And so when I went for a walk with Rich and said, I've got some tunes, he's going, well, yeah, come on up, we'll make an album.
Awesome.
And so I ended up recording an album in 2019 called Won't Last Forever. And then, with what went on with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, stuck at home, I started writing more songs. So that's the album that I just finished now. That's the story. I mean, the thing is as Thunderhead, it keeps going, and it is so much fun. And the people have changed, most of the people except Steve and I, so we've been together. We've got this great relationship. We know each other so well. We can read each other so well. And it's a good fit. So I feel very fortunate to have someone I've played with for nearly 40 years.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
that's such a gift. And, that you still get along and there's not a lot of drama and ego involved is such a huge gift. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's changed. That's one of the things. One of the guys that used to play the keyboard player that played in Bill Godin, that played in Thunderheads in the original versions, and then came back and he came and played when we were doing some of these things at Studio 2, the Thunderheads and Friends. And he said, well, what happened? People used to be, there used to be egos and everyone was out. He's going, everyone's getting along and everyone's, and so I've thought about, I think it has to do something with, as we get older and hopefully more mature. But I think part of it is too, if you're doing music after all these years, it's because you love it. And the people that were in it because it was cool or because of an ego, I mean, those people probably dropped off, a long time ago. So anyway, so that's kind of one of my, the favorite things.
I think about the ego thing too. And it seems to me sometimes, I mean, of course there's ego involved with really great players, but it seems as a general rule, when you don't have anything to prove, it doesn't get in the way as much. I watch, Steve with these bands that he's in and maybe like you said, it's just age, but none of these guys, they're all so accomplished and so good. They have nothing to prove to anybody. So they have nothing to guard that.
Right.
And so much of ego issues have to come from feeling bad about yourself in some way, inadequate. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I love that. I love watching Jambalaya work together. And I bet it's the same way that it is for you in Thunderheads.
Yeah. And I've got to play with those guys some too, I mean, so that's the thing is I would just jump at the chance. That was what Bruce, when they had a gig and said, hey, but they have two guitar players. Neither one of them could play. You want to come and join us? Like, sure, no, I mean, and so it's just fun just to jump in,
Right.
and
yeah.
That's very cool.
I want to take a step back, Craig. I assume you said you took some piano lessons. I assume that you're self-taught on guitar. Or did you take some lessons?
I took some lessons. It started like when I was in fifth grade, and it was like that Mel Bay guitar book that anyone of that era would remember, where it's like, nah, 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 and it's reading notes and it's this and that. But I was like, no, I want to play songs, right. Teach me some chords. And so, so then I did take lessons for a while. But then really from there, it was just like getting Beatles songs books and Creedence Clearwater, and all that kind of stuff. So the number of lessons I took and the number of years, I didn't take that much. And so, and it was before the days where you could have YouTube videos and all those things. So we learned stuff. And then when I get, the friends, like say the friends I was playing with, that I met in 10th grade, we'd sit and we'd share stuff and a lot of it was probably wrong, but it's the way to learn. And so that was it.
I wonder with self-taught, people that are self-taught are mostly self-taught. Do you learn by just learning songs, or do you do the things that you do when you take lessons, like, repetitive things like scales and all that kind of, all those kind of technical learning type of things? Or is it just learning songs, learning solos? You learn your scales by learning solos, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. I remember the album that influenced me in my earlier years, like saying, going back to when I was in 10th grade, and we were huge Allman Brothers fans. And so like Allman Brothers at Phil Maurice, we'd lift the needle up, and I remember learning like it would be the Dickie Betts solo or the different things, so you'd kind of learn scales through learning that. And yeah, there'd be some repetitive stuff too. Yeah. But maybe if I could go back, there's, I think a lot of guitar players like me that are self-taught, they go back, well, I'd maybe want to get a little more formal training and things like that. But, what can you do?
Right. And you know what? It worked for you. It worked. So, So yeah. There's no regrets there. Okay. Songwriting, your new album. First of all, I want to say Thunderheads. What a great name for a band. I love it. Band names I think they're so hard to come up with.
It is very hard. And I know when, I said when we were coming out with our first album, we said, okay, we're going to, have this new name. And, it's so hard because when you hear them for the first time, it's like, oh, that's not really. And in the end, I tell people, it was the one name that nobody nobody disliked. No one said, oh, no, there's no way. Because usually someone throws out ideas, there's people, no way, we're not going to have that. So we all agreed on Thunderheads, and I think it's proved to be, over the years, it's proved to be a really good name.
So let's turn to this new album. What are you calling it?
It is called Back Together.
And how many tunes are on it?
There's 10 songs on it.
And you chose from how many?
I had other ideas, other songs and different ideas of stuff. But these are the 10 that I ended up honing together. And the key to songwriting for me has become voice memo on my iPhone.
Nice.
Because any idea I get, whether I can be out for a walk and if I hear a line in my head, all of a sudden, and I can just push record and have that. Or if I feel like there's some kind of a riff or something when I'm on guitar, just turn it on. Or sometimes I'll have a song that I have a partial part of it. And then like, oh, this little thing back here can be like the bridge or a chorus, or it can, I piece things together.
Right. It would go into this other song that I'm working on.
And so, right. So the story behind this album and why it's called Back Together, go back to, 2020, we were all stuck at home. And so what I started doing just to keep up on my playing, there was a show that was, it was going to be a pub rock show that, it would just be solo, all these people come in and do songs by Elvis Costello or anyway, different like British pop. And so I learned this song by Graham Parker, and that I thought would always be a good one. And so a good one to play solo. And then it was canceled. It was the first thing. It was March of 2020.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I learned the song. Why don't I just record it on YouTube and then I can just share it to the group? I started doing that most days then. And then I thought, well, let's start doing some original songs. So, I had some ideas of some songs, and then, so that kind of made me really focus on it, because if I was going to record it, it had to be at least somewhat finished. And going back, I guess your question about song, there were songs I recorded like that never made it to the album. Maybe a little bit of it ended up in another song. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, my dad's father, he left when my dad was born in 1929 and went out to California. He left the family, and we knew some about him. He was a poet. He was, very independent thinking, and we knew, and we had seen poetry because at the time that he passed away in 1970, his wife at the time sent all these letters and long handwritten letters, because my dad and him never got together.
Wow.
And so it's so sad. I think they both thought, well, the other person and this part, that he doesn't want to see me. And I'm sure they would have gotten along so well. And back in those days, it was like, hush, hush, you don't want to talk about it. It was taboo.
Right.
And so, so we learned some just about from these letters, and she included some poems that he had written and that he was published. Well, we knew that he had a book that had been published, but of course it was out of print. But my daughter online found it.
Wow.
in this bookstore in LA, and it was called Detour to Destiny, published in 1940. So I ordered it and got a really good copy, and it was a copy that he had given to someone, and so it had his little note to that person and his signature.
Wow.
And so I started just getting, this is like a lost world. And I start reading it and going through these. And some of these songs, I'm like feeling music.
Some of the poems you're feeling music.
Some of the poems. Yeah. And so I then started like taking bits of, you can't just take a poem and make it into a song because they're written totally different.
Right.
But I started taking bits of some of the things and writing them down and making all these notes. And then I started piecing them together and turning them into songs. And so, it just gave me this feeling, and I was like, I was on a mission. So 4 of the songs that are on this album are ones that I did that way, including There Was a Rose, one of the songs that we'll hear. And so Back Together, the cover of the album is the only picture that we know of, or the only picture we have of my grandmother and my grandfather together.
Oh, that is such a
And so
great
Back
story.
Together was a song that I wrote that was kind of about what I was going through and the feelings that I was having as I was doing all this stuff. So that's really finding that book. I mean, I'd already written some songs, but I really wasn't well on my way to recording an album. It was just like, writing some music. But
Right.
then that kind of pushed me ahead, and so that's kind of what how that all happened.
Oh, Craig, that is such a cool story. That is so cool. And we'll listen to There Was a Rose a little later
Yeah,
in the show, but we're going
yeah.
to start with the song called Too Late.
This is the first song on the album. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a listen to it. Before we do that, though, let's go through the musicians involved on the song.
Oh yeah. Okay. On Too Late. Okay, I'm singing. I play acoustic guitar. I play the 12-string Rickenbacker, and then Rich Mattson, who is his Sparta Studio, he's playing bass guitar on this, and then he's also playing the lead guitar. It's the one song that he plays lead guitar on because we were so excited when we recorded it. And then Steve Lextrud plays electric guitar and backing vocals. Keely Lane plays drums. Al Oikri is playing organ. Colleen Martin Oak is doing vocals, and Bill Boyce is Thunderheads drummer. He's playing percussion on it.
So let's take a listen to Too Late, an original by my guest today, Craig Paquette. It's from his album of originals called Back Together. This is Pauline Jennings, and you're listening to Musician Talk. You just heard Too Late, an original by my guest today, Craig Paquette. First of all, I love the song. It's nostalgic yet modern. You know what I mean? There's so much nostalgia in there. It sounds like a lot of bands that I really love listening to, probably in my 20s and 30s and now. But yet it doesn't sound dated. So really great job with
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Really
Thank
cool.
you.
The effect on your voice, I'm not sure if it's doubled or what you did with it. I love it. It sounds
Yeah, we doubled it. Yeah.
yeah. There's so much going on in this song. I mean, there's just a lot, and yet you can hear everything. So great job on engineering too, and finding pockets for and frequencies for everything to just sit and not get messy. It's really, I love the song. It made me smile through the whole thing. So
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell me more about it, a little bit more, and then we have to move on.
The original idea of it, I was thinking about the moment that I decided to make the move for my wife way back when. So we've known each other for maybe 5 months, and I think we both knew we would be, we were a really good fit. But of course, when you're like, she was 19, I was 21, 22. But finally, I made that decision, and it's like, okay, enough is enough. And so that's what this song about, Too Late, So that was my original thought on it. But of course, as now 64-year-old me, Too Late has a whole other, a whole bunch of other things that it is, let's get stuff done here while we can. And it's good advice for myself. It's probably good advice for everybody. If you wait too long, give up on it, miss an opportunity, and it may never come back.
Exactly. It's a great reason to not start things that you want to do because, it's too late. I can't do it anyway. And it kind of allows you to play into your fears of starting something new too. It's a good excuse, but it's not valid.
Yeah. Right. And the fear, I mean, back then it was like the fear of being, thinking, oh, we'd be great together, but maybe I'll be put down, maybe,
Right.
maybe.
Right.
So anyway, and that's everyone's fear. You don't want anyway. So
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our quote. This is, I picked one from Tom Petty. The quote is, music is probably the only real magic I have encountered in my life. There's not some trick involved with it. It's pure and it's real. It moves, it heals, it communicates, and does all these incredible things. That's Tom Petty. And I love this quote because we're all looking for a little magic. And you know what? It's right there. It's in the music, I think. What do you think when you hear that quote?
Yeah, I think that quote is on so many different levels. Because there's so many different magic. I mean, I remember the first time I heard a guitar just strummed live. There was my dad's uncle's daughter. They were staying at our house, and she was, so at the time I was probably about maybe 8, and she was in high school. And I thought, and she brought her guitar along. And I just remember sitting up in my parents' bedroom and it was just like, there's that the magic was there. And then, you think about if you're out and you're listening to music and all of a sudden you feel your hair tingle,
right.
That's music magic, and
right.
it doesn't, I don't know of anything else that can happen quite like that. And then, it's the mix of, it can happen if you're just playing by yourself. I mean, if I come up with some idea and I'm like, oh, wow, this is, where did that come from? But then, really the next level is when you're playing with people and then you feel that magic with the people that are there listening. And it doesn't have to be a huge crowd. When it's a huge crowd, of course, that's even better.
Right.
But we've all played in shows when it's there's not that many people there, but if there's a few people that you've locked into that are into it, and you can just see that you're communicating, yes. And that communication is the music, that's the magic of music, is that communication that just happens because you're feeling the same thing.
Right. And the feeling, I was just thinking too of how evocative music is of memories and emotions of memories of emotions. And how does that work? How does that happen? That, song, and it takes me back to high school and the feeling I had when I listened to that song a bazillion times, then that's magic.
Yeah. The history of my life is memories of music at a certain, I'll say, oh, I remember when I heard that song. I'm crazy about that. I mean, it's just like that. That's the history of my life. I can tell you what song I heard or, that's very cool.
Very cool. And what's funny on the outline that I sent you, I said, what does the music of magic mean to you? And of course, I meant to say, what does the magic of music mean? But when you put it the other way, it's pretty cool too. The music of magic.
Yeah.
So that if there's this thing magic, that it's musical in and of itself.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, a little metaphysical, but
it works. I mean, and it works on all. I mean, I just saw Bruce Springsteen the other day, and I mean, talking about someone who knows how to make music magic, and his people. Yeah. You could have a crowd of 18,000 people. He's got this huge band, but then for a couple songs, he's down to just himself. You could hear a pin drop because of that. That's magic.
That's magic.
That someone can have everyone's attention to be able to just all of a sudden silence, and everyone is listening to the same thing at the same time. And
wow, magical. Craig, we have to move on here. I'd love to talk about magic and music forever, but we need to move on. We're going to listen to this next song. There Was a Rose, which was prompted by the book of poetry that you found of your grandfather's. And so we know the story behind the song a little bit. And I assume it's pretty much the same musicians involved. Was there anybody different on this song?
I think just thinking about it, the only difference is Al Oikri is playing lap steel guitar on this one now. He's playing, because he played on this album. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's probably best known for being in the Big Woo.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to say anything more about this song? Maybe this specific poem of your grandfather's that kind of prompted this.
Yeah, this poem, it was called Tell Her That You Saw Me, which is actually, it's the name of the poem, but it's actually the first line. This was probably the poem that I took the most from a single poem. It was a pretty short poem. And then there was another poem that had some stuff I thought was really good. And then I used some of my own lyrics for it too. I picture this song is something that he was thinking of my grandmother and my dad, and there was probably others he was thinking of too. But,
no. He was thinking of your grandmother and your father.
But
definitely.
It is the most sentimental. I mean, this one, this one, when I did it and finished it and heard it played, and even just on the voice memo, because I pretty much had it down, it definitely brought tears to my eyes. It was it was very emotional.
And it's emotionally performed. So it's a very, very touching song. Let's do it. Let's take a listen to There Was a Rose from Back Together, an album of originals by my guest today, Craig Paquette.
Tell her that you saw me, and on my face there was no frown. A few fresh wrinkles round those dreamy eyes. My hair is thinned and lost its gloss. My heart beats slower now. Please tell her in my buttonhole you saw a rose. penny stalls and lonely garret rooms. The years will lick the marrow of my bones. Tell her that I'm growing old, but still remember all. If you choose, please tell her in my buttonhole you sorrow. If you choose, please tell her in my buttonhole you sorrow.
This is Musician Talk, and I'm your host, Pauline Jennings. My guest today is Craig Paquette. You just heard a recording of his original tune called There Was a Rose. He has a new album out called Back Together, and we're going to talk later about where you can find that. As I said, it's a beautiful song. It's so touching. It's just really sweet song, and I love, love, love the full harmonies that you have going on in this song. It's just
Yeah, that's Steve and Colleen. I mean, it's so good to have. Colleen sang, I think, on my last album. She sang on backing vocals on Everyone But One. I mean, so she's an important part. And then on this one too. And then Steve and I mean, we harmonize. That's a big part of Thunderheads, and especially when we do the duo, it stands out. So yeah, Steve and Colleen and I. That's why when we decided to, we have a Thunderheads trio, it's the three of us, because we can have these harmonies, and it's singing my original songs, Steve's original songs, plus covers too. So, but yeah, it's the harmonies. I love harmonies.
I do too. That's the only kind of band I want to be in, is if I have a lot of harmonies. And the band that I was in, it was kind of two leads, singing. Harmony would be just as loud as melody in most of the songs that we did. What I love about working with somebody for so long is that you learn how to sing vowels the same. Your consonants are the same. You end things the same. You can read each other, how you're going to scoop a note. It just becomes second nature to each other, so that your match and your blend is so wonderful. And you can hear that in this song, the experience that you guys have had together. That's great.
Oh, thanks.
So, best gig, worst gig. What you got for me?
Well, each era has those gigs that you think, like when I was in that band, when I was in high school, we played at the People's Center. It's a party that shouldn't have been, that type of party should not be allowed for high school kids. But man, did we have fun. And you're playing in front of, but we'll move. I mean, it can't be, it's not that.
Were you saying that was one of your best or worst?
I'm just thinking, because when I got the question, I'm thinking back to what, throughout the years, some of my most memorable things.
Well, and so, I think playing for a bunch of your peers when you're in high school, you're a rock star on the stage. There's not much that beats that, really.
Oh, it's very cool. Yes. And so, and then of course with Thunderheads, we opened when our first album came out, we right after that, we sent it into, and I think it was maybe Bruce that brought it down to First Avenue. And we got this right after, got this opening to play with Merle Saunders. So that gig, wow. We were the opener, and there was another band, New Sun Union, that played, that we knew those guys. That it was by coincidence they were playing. So of course, when we played, it was early, and people aren't kind of milling about. It wasn't. So we played it at First Avenue as a headliner a number of years later. My biggest fear was the curtain will lift and no one will be, whatever.
Right. So no one will be there.
And we got to do that we got to play there like that 3 times. Okay. Those are all great. When I did my release show for my last album, that was at the Hook and Ladder. I mean, it was fantastic. It was a collaboration. All the people that played on the album, Thunderheads played. And there's musicians that I've idolized most of my life, or that, all that. So, and I was any one of those, but then I remembered, and this is the one.
Okay.
So here's the one. So we would used to do Thunderheads reunion shows because we'd had, through the years, after all, we had all these different players, and we would do them at the Parkway Theater. But then I think maybe it was between ownership. And so we were going to do one in 2017 at Famous Dave's, the Uptown one that's since closed, which was a great room, a big room.
Yeah, it was great stage. Yep.
It was a really cool. So we were going to do it there. Okay. So Steve Blexrud, about a year before that, started to have these cognitive issues.
Oh no.
And I mean, it wasn't diagnosed. I mean, even though you go see the doctor, and it got progressively worse and worse and worse. About 2.5 weeks before that show, it was so bad. He finally gets in. They give him an MRI, and it turns out that he had like a non-malignant tumor, but it was the size of a small fist. It had been growing and putting pressure on his brain. So anyway, so of course, what do we do? Well, the show must go on. Well, let's turn it into, like I don't want to call it a benefit, but let's do this for Steve. And so we had Colleen. She came, Eddie Baumgart, Al Oikry, who we'd known from before, Lindsay Payne, who plays in Colleen, then a friend, Kevin Thayer. And then we had Bill Godin, that used to be our keyboard player, and his son plays saxophone, and Eric Jacobson, who used to be our old drummer. And anyway, so we had all these people, plus the guys that were the current members at the time, Bill Boyce, Don Blue, and of course, my brother Bruce. And so we put together kind of this last minute thing, this big group of people, and we just kind of rotated around and played. So this is just 2 weeks after his surgery. Steve comes, he's at the show, and midway through the show, he comes up and he sings harmony. He comes up and sings harmony, and then he had brought his guitar, and we played some songs. He joined in on some songs and guitar, and talk about magic, music, the magic of music. That night, that room was just, it was like something that, I mean, all these other shows and everything is fantastic, because this was something else. And a friend, Michael Hardwick, he documented it. He took some fantastic photos. And I know he told me afterwards that he said the magic in that room was like, it was off the charts, and it was what we were feeling, but it was anyway. So that is my number one favorite gig, because it just had so many things. And obviously since then, now that was from 2017, Steve is doing great. And we continue to play. And so, that's my top gig.
It's like not only the magic of music was in that room, but the magic of love. I mean, because you guys were there because you loved Steve, and
it was jam packed. It was just it was a jam packed room, and it was just one of those things. Yeah.
Wow, that is great. I hate to follow that up with the worst gig.
Well, yeah. So the worst gigs, I was thinking back to it was a friend's wedding, a brother of a friend's wedding. And it was the mother-in-law that we ended up didn't even finish the gig, because she's like, "Can't you boys play anything nice?" and so the next thing I can picture us, like sitting, on our gear going, "Wow, that was too bad." That didn't go well, I guess. But the one that comes to mind, worst gig, Panic. I'm going to use the word panic. We made it through the gig and all that. But okay, this goes way back to the days that we were practicing in the basement of my friend's house at Bobby Sinker when I was in high school.
With those wonderful parents who let you do that.
The parents, I mean, definitely. I mean, we can't say enough how important they were, to the whole, to me, even to this day. But so we had a lead singer at the time, and the lead singer was he was older than us. We were like 16 and 17, and he was probably in his early 20s. And so we got this gig. It was actually some people that I know's church, and it was by far the best paying gig we'd ever had. And so, but you had to sign a contract, there's going to be no foul language in the songs or between the songs. Absolutely no alcohol, blah, 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 all these things. And we had to sign it, this and that. So we go to load up our gear, and it's like, where's our lead singer? oh my gosh, where is he? He's not here. And this is before cell phones or anything. So somehow we figured out that he was out at a bar. And so we have to go pick him up on the way to the gig. And we get there and get him. And he's there. And he comes. And he's going, my friend's going to come with too. And so his friend he's got dark glasses, a trench coat, and like slick back black hair.
Oh no, he looks dangerous.
Oh, and we go out to we're just like, oh no, there's no way this is going to work. They're going to kick us out. We're not going to get paid. So we go to the gig, we get set up. And what does his friend do? But he puts a chair right in front of the stage. The stage was raised like maybe 3 or 4 feet, right in the middle of the stage on the floor, and just sat there looking up at us. In between the break, of course, they're out in the parking lot, and we're like, no. So anyway, that was the worst gig. We made it through. We got paid. It was the last gig he played with us. And I guess the good news is from there, that's when I started becoming a lead singer. But yeah, so that would be my story of the worst gig, but it turned out we made it through, but it was the scariest I ever was playing.
Right. Like the whole gig, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is going to happen? What's he going to say? That's a great story. And I'm glad that it turned into you becoming a singer, because I love your voice. And that is just so great. And to wrap up, we have to wrap up. Let's find out where people can find your music and your schedule. Okay.
So the music. So my new album just came out this past weekend. It's on Apple Music. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Bandcamp. And if you just search Craig Paquette, you can find it.
And that's Paquette.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you can find that. And then Thunderheads, our album that we had that came out in 2006, that's on Apple Music. I think it's on Spotify too. So if people want to look that one up. And then also I just got a message, or I got an email that the CDs that for this album are on their way. So I should have those for those few people that have CD players. But
exactly. Nice to have something physical in your hand.
Yeah. And then you can find us thunderheadsmusic.com has got our entire music schedule on it. So people can find all of our gigs on there, and we stay pretty busy. The big one that I want to announce though is the release show. It's going to be July 8th at the Parkway Theater in Minneapolis.
Oh,
and I just so happen I'm going to kind of push the idea that it's my 65th birthday that month too. So why not, celebrate that and music. And so for that, it's going to be what I call Craig and the Spartones, which the Spartones are what I call the band because it's Sparta sound. So all the people that played on the album plus Thunderheads will play. And then there's a woman that Al Oikri, who's playing at this. He does shows with this woman from Nashville called Caitlin Nicole Thomas, and it just so happens in July they're going to be playing shows all over Minnesota. So she's going to play a set there too.
Oh, cool!
So it could be a really good time.
And it's July 8th at what time?
7:30.
Folks, put it on your calendar, July 8th. Okay, Craig, we got to go. Thank you so much. This was fun. You have some great stories. It was really great to get to know you a little better.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for having me, and say hi to that husband of yours. We love playing with him.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Many, many thanks to Craig for sharing his wonderful new music and great stories with us today. Thanks always to Wendy Nordquist and to you, dear listener, for tuning into Musician Talk on the One, KYMN. Have a stellar day.